So the city, it's the Vladivostokians, I suppose is what you can call them. The citizens there, they call it the Russian San Francisco, and it pretty much is in terms of geographic. The Vladivostok is very, very hilly, like, and not just like small hills, like steep hills, just like in San Fran. The very steep hills, and at least when I was there just a year or two ago, they repainted everything. Otherwise, it used to be just all Soviet gray buildings, like the big, 10-story rectangles. There's a couple good places you can go there. They have a lot of stuff around the seaport. So it's one of their main shipping hubs. So you can always see boats and stuff coming in. You can walk around the little beach. That's always fun. If you go to the top of some of the hills, they have lookout vantages where you can see, a good like half of the city, which is really cool. They just built 2 new bridges though, that span the 2 bays. So one bay is about, I want to say it's about it's probably about half a mile wide. It's in the very middle of the city. It's this little bay in the middle of the city, and so they built a bridge over that, brand new, and that's great because that cuts out travel from an hour and a half to get around to the other side to about 30 minutes. So that's great. And then they have another one that goes about a mile and a half, and it goes over the actual ocean to a big island called Russian Island. Not a lot of people live there, but they just built a brand new, humongous university there, like a state-of-the-art one. And we have some members. We have a couple members that live out there, and that's really cool. They have some cool stuff out there. In terms of transportation, you will primarily be taking buses. The buses are buses that the South Koreans stopped using in the 80s. That are still being used now. They still have the South Koreans Korean drapes on them. Still there from the 80s. They're still there. The streets are very narrow. They're very crowded. And so getting anywhere on bus, which is what you have to take, because it's a very long, very big city. It can take anywhere between 30, 40 minutes. Before they built the bridge to get from the church to the other side of the bay, which is where we were living at the time, in traffic, took an hour and a half. Vlad used to be the Russian naval headquarters for the Pacific. It's since moved to a different city. I don't know what city it's in, but they still have a big Russian naval presence there. So there's always some Russian Navy ships docked there. Every year, they'll have a couple of these really big, huge mast ships, like old, like wooden ships with like the huge, like 200-foot sails type of thing, or whatever, however big they are. Industries there are mainly fishing and shipping. There's a bunch of government work. There's a bunch of like little shops that you can go to. I'm trying to think. There's some cool temples there. They have a Catholic temple there. They have a Catholic church there. They have a couple Russian temples. The city is just very long, and so like each of the different sections of the cities have different fun little like attributes about them. The city center where the church is very busy. It's very packed. I lived out in the ghetto part of the city, and that had just a completely different feel to it. There's one part of the city called Belayeva that has the entire hill. So it's probably about a good 2-mile long hill. It's just full of these 10-story apartment buildings, complexes, and you can just see it, and they're just stacked one on top of each other. So there's like 30 of them on just this one big hill. So in terms of that, there's that, and then Vlad is a lot like a lot of your other Russian cities. They're all each city will have its own little flair. But they're all kind of like the same thing. They're all really packed. They're very narrow. You have to take buses. It will take a while to get everywhere. People don't talk on buses very much, so that's always a challenge when you're trying to talk to people on the bus. But a really fun city, a very different city in our mission is one called Ulan-Ude, and that's on the other side of Lake Baikal, and it is the Buddhist capital of Russia. They have they have a couple Russian temples, but they also have a ton. They have, I think, 6 or 7 big Buddhist temples in the city, and that city is it's kind of like spread out on kind of like a plateau and a hill. And everybody there looks Mongolian, but technically their race is called Buryatan. So they're ethnic Russians, but they look Mongolian. So you can't call them Mongolians, otherwise they get really offended. But it's a completely different type of feel. It's so it kind of has kind of like that more kind of like Asian Mongolian type of feel to it. That in Russia, in that city particularly, like the roads are a little bit more like spread out. They're not as narrow, and so like traffic moves a little bit quicker. And they have a lot of really cool stuff there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. So if you can go into the Buddhist temples, those are always really fun to go to. There's a lot of every Russian city has some type of big, like, huge department store. And what's really cool is each Russian city has a big superstore, kind of like our version of like a Walmart or Smith's or a Kroger's. They have like a whole bunch of like the itty bitty mom and pop stores and one big superstore, which is where you normally go and get your stuff, because they have the biggest variety, which is what we like. Russians like consistency, so sometimes they don't like going to those stores, but each of those stores are great. You can get anything you want there. Well, okay, no, you can't get everything you want, but you can get they have a lot of choices, and so you're never really like aching for anything.